context, I'm an artist. This is some work that I've done. So I finished my degree in 2013 at Brighton University, and I studied discipline and repetition in a fine art practice where I would sit for hours and hours at a time and draw lines. For an entire year I drew lines, and this particular piece was lines onto a 20-meter roll of tracing paper, and I would perform it for 5 hours every single day until it was finished. And then I wrote a book about it. Anyway, after university, I realised that there was a huge problem. All of my friends, who had all got firsts or quite good results, were not going into creative job roles. And if they were going into creative job roles, they were really badly overworked and really badly underpaid. And I was one of those people as well. And it was quite simple to see that none of us had any business skills, any business sense whatsoever. And I realised that that was a problem. So I went to Central St Martin's in London immediately after university and did an Entrepreneurship for Creatives course. It was 1 week long, and it taught me the nuts and bolts of everything about contracts, intellectual property, copyright, the stuff that you did not get taught about at art school. So I did that, and it was a real slap in the face. And then one day I woke up and I had a Eureka moment. I looked up at my partner and I said, I think I'm going to open an art gallery. And it's going to be for me and my friends, and we're going to learn about professionalism, and it's going to be great. And he looked down at me and he was like, that's a really good idea, you should definitely open a gallery. And I was like, oh my god, okay. So then I remembered this moment. A friend of mine had gone to a lecture by a guy called Thompson, maybe you know him, who came to the university and said, there's empty high street shops, it's ruining the economy, it's causing vandalism. People like us and you, creative people, should go into those empty high street shops and make them into something better and rejuvenate the city once again. So I typed into Google, how to open a pop-up gallery in Brighton for artists, and lo and behold, Thompson's book came up. There it is. I bought the book immediately. It arrived, and I tweeted Thompson. It was the most casual tweet, but it took about half an hour for me to draft it. It was something like, if I make this work, can we go for coffee? And he became an online mentor for me. And I've written risk right there because a great mentor of mine, Tom Nixon, told me once that every project starts with a set of needs, or just one need. But it's not until the first risk is taken that your project really begins. And for me, that was my first risk. And it's really important to remember the first risk because 15 years down the line, you might not realize, but you've completely moved away from your set of needs. Or perhaps your set of needs were already fulfilled years beforehand and you're just in this crazy limbo state. So it's important to remember those incredible first risks, and luckily I have as well. And I'll come back to this risk thing in a bit. Anyway, I read the book. It was good, but I needed to meet some real people. So I went to the council and met an amazing woman called Branwen Lorigan, who's like my second mother. And I went to her, had coffee, and said, here's my idea. And she was like, that's all very well and good, but you shouldn't be speaking to me. You should be speaking to that guy over there who happened to be in the same cafe as us, who was Tom Nixon, my mentor. And I went over to him and said, I think you can help me. I've been told you can. Can you help me? And he said, we had a coffee, and he said, the first question was, when do you want to open your gallery? And I said, in a year's time, I'm going to open my gallery. I'm going to know what I'm doing. I'm going to have all the research and the funding. It's going to be great. And he said, you're stuck in an academic mentality where you think things take a year, but they don't. You need to begin your project immediately. And so I did. And he gave me a list of cool things to do. The first thing was to go and see Charlie Davis, who ran the Wild School, which was a prototype for a new community-led school. And I didn't realise, but I went, and the idea is that you go in order to learn, but in order to learn you should teach. So I didn't realise that, but I ended up teaching about 5 different experimental humming classes, which then got onto the radio as well. It was just this wonderful radical school of change, and everything was very generous there. One of the other things that I did was start a workshop. I've taken this video I was about to show you out of the presentation because we don't have sound and it would have been rubbish, but Fast Art he told me to physicalize my idea. So, you know, it was just this abstract thought at the time, and he was like, okay, take that and make it into the real world. Do something which is physical. So I started a workshop called Fast Art, and it was awful the first time I did it. But the idea was to get a bunch of people together, everyone puts £1 down into the middle of the table, and you come up with an idea collaboratively. Then you spend this tiny budget of £7 or whatever, making your idea a reality, so it's normally salvaged goods, cardboard, paper, whatever. You make it, and then you go out onto the street and you exhibit your idea, and then you have to sell it as well. And you can't sell to one another, but everything must be sold. And this, I didn't realise at the time, but is the 3-hour version of the 3-month course I now offer at Collective. So that was a really important thing that he told me to do. Anyway, I went back to Tom. Oh gosh, you can't see any of this, but I went back to Tom, and this was all very much at the beginning of that summer of 2013 after my degree, and I'd done quite a lot of stuff, and I went back to Tom and I said, look what I've been doing! And he's very impressed, said, come onto my course. So, what Jim was talking earlier, this Fusebox 24, I was on the pilot version of that course, which was called the Fusebox AMP, and it was 1 month long, and it took me up until the end of the summer. And it was in this beautiful, disgusting building, which is the New England House in Brighton. And it was incredible. For me, it was so much more than a business course. They weren't teaching us about profit, they were teaching us about problem solving, which I loved. And there were 25 different mentors who were not just from big brands. There were people who were there with a therapy background almost. And I loved it, and I felt completely cherished and nurtured by these people. And on the last day of my of this course, one of my mentors said to me, Christmas is coming. You should probably begin your first pop-up gallery immediately. And I was thinking, like, I could probably do a few more courses, don't you think? And I thought, no, you're totally right. Christmas is coming. That's going to be really lucrative. Oh my God, what are we going to do? So I rounded up my friends, and it was really easy to get hold of artists because there's a lot of people who are stuck in cafe work and bar work who are really sick and tired of working for no money, making posters for bands. So I got 21 artists together, mostly illustrators because there's a cutting-edge illustration course in Brighton, so there's a lot of them left over. We got some idea that we needed some money, and I didn't know how to write an Arts Council application, but instead somebody said, let's do a crowdfunding campaign. So we did it on Kickstarter. We had no time, but we just got it together in 2 weeks. We made a quick video. I was going to show you that as well, but I can show you some other time or send you a link. The Kickstarter went out. In the first 24 hours, we got 50% of the money, and then 2 weeks later, we got all the money we needed. This is all we needed. We didn't need 30,000 grand. We didn't need so much at all. We just needed the money for the rent to go inside an empty high street shop and transform it. I was working as a graphic designer, so could still sustain myself. But this wasn't about paying me. This was just getting the money together as a group of people. And the reason I chose Kickstarter over Indiegogo is because there's so much more risk involved. It's so much more urgent because if you don't reach your goal that you set yourself in 30 days or whatever you give yourself, you can't keep any of the money. So we worked together collaboratively as a group of 21 artists, and we told everybody about this. We were ridiculous. I mean, I just spoke to old women next to me on the bus, like, can I tell you about my Kickstarter? It was wonderful, and we got the money. And then I had to find a space. And I have to tell you, in all honesty, finding a space was the most difficult thing I've ever done because we didn't have any support at that time. We Are Pop-Up, who are also funded by Recreate, hadn't really understood Brighton by that point. They didn't have a space ready for me to move into, so it was all done by word of mouth. You know, it got to the stage where we were about to get the funding, I still didn't have a space, and I was saying to the artists, we might just have to do this in a cafe, and I don't want that to be the case. One of the last artists I recruited said, I know someone. And I was like, you know someone? Oh my God, who is it? And it was the guy who owned this disgusting butchery on St James's Street in Brighton in Cape Town. And it was the most horrific thing when I went to go look at it. Mold everywhere, it smelt so bad, and there was just stuff everywhere as well. But I walked in and I was like, it's beautiful. So we transformed it in just 1 week. All of us came together and scratched away all of the mold and all the crap, and then we made it into a gallery. Oh, you can't see it at all, I'm so gutted. But we did a mural in the front. Sussex local produce, how fitting. We were there for 6 weeks, and this is what it looked like inside. We put up wood to then hang our artwork from, and we made the space what we wanted it to be. It was such a DIY and disgusting, wonderful space. We were there for 6 weeks. Here's some stuff that we did inside. So because of the Wild School teaching me that it's important to teach others and to skill swap like that, I encouraged all of the artists to teach as well, mostly free workshops and talks to the public, which was great for footfall, but also for their resume and for their confidence. And then there was this wonderful day. Well, I got 2 great emails, one from the university saying, "We'd like to give you some money to open your next gallery." And I was like, yeehaw! And the next email underneath was a personal email from Caroline Lucas, Brighton's MP, saying, "God, I really like what you're up to, Sophie. Can I put you up for an award?" And I was like, who's playing a prank on me? But no one was playing a prank on me, it was Caroline. And so, last year I held the title of Most Outstanding Social Entrepreneur of the South East. And then I was made a national finalist, but I didn't win because the person who won was genuinely saving lives. And then I opened my next gallery. Maybe I will play you this, see if we can...
No.
Oh no.
Yeah, that works.
There's no sound, but this
you
is like...
were going to sing it.
Oh yeah. But it's like some DJ music on top. This is our teaser film to introduce the new artists, and we didn't want to say who they were, so everyone made a little hat, which was rad. And so the new artists came on board, and we did another Kickstarter. This time we didn't need as much, and we only did it for 2 weeks. So in the first 24 hours, again, we reached 50% of the money, and 2 weeks later, we got all the money that we needed. And I did it to teach the new artists involved. And then we moved into another disgusting space. You can't see it at all, but the walls were horrific, disgraceful walls. But it didn't matter because we were learning about how to make an ugly place into a gorgeous place. And this is what it looked like inside.
Wow.
And we did things like this, where we would put on events, and it was fantastic. Anyway, oh gosh, there's another video there, but I won't show you it. Now, I can't stop. I love it. It is a real addiction. I've opened 3 galleries. We've had 8 exhibitions. The artists that have come on board, collective, are starting their own ventures, are doing their own Kickstarters, are opening their own spaces, are becoming teachers in their own right. And it's really great because we come together and we're very confident when we're together. And it just really supports the community even more. We love it, we love it. And now I'm at this really interesting point where I remembered my risk, that first risk, and I remembered those needs that I set out to achieve, and that was to be professional with a group of friends, to learn about collaboration and resourcefulness. And actually I feel like I've fulfilled those needs, which gives me a headspace for a completely new set of needs to arise. And a new set of needs have arisen, and they're about global collaboration and being an international collaborator and what that means and how that affects people and their confidence and their resume. And the funny thing is that we're actually all global collaborators anyway, because the internet offers us that locality. So right now I'm redesigning the collective website. I'm giving away all the knowledge I have learned over the last 18 months, and I'm making it into a manual. And that'll be coming out soon, just before I start my new project. So whatever I've learned, you can learn as well. And this is the new project, although I have to admit we might change the name, but currently it's called Nice to Meet You, which is a global online platform which introduces UK artists to artists all over the world, but in the form of visual dialogues. And visual dialogues are like this. So, for example, one person, for this particular person is Harry Mills, who lives in the UK, asked the question, if you could ask one question to someone living on the other side of the world, what would it be? And Ed J. Brown, who lives in Germany, answered this. So it was a visual dialogue between 2 people in 2 different locations. And this is the other side of the conversation. Ed then asked, if you could live anywhere, ... And Harry from the UK answered this. And so these global collaborations will start, I want, hopefully, in 3 years' time, I'm very, this is a very new idea, but in 3 years' time, I would like to curate a global exhibition of artists living all over the place who can start talking to one another and be problem solvers together. And that's it.
Why 3 years?
Why 3 years? I feel like that's enough time to set out to achieve a global project.
Your first thing was a year. Why not? Straight away.
That's a
Well,
big
we are
thing.
beginning, that's true, but a global exhibition, I don't want to rush that idea, but we're always going to be doing global exhibitions. Every time one of these comes out, it will be a global exhibition online, but a physical exhibition, that will take a little bit more time.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you're right, I should
Not
just
3
do
years.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.